Hello everyone, I'm here with an update to the Permafrost Fragmentation rounds build. This video might go on forever because I've got quite a lot to talk about, but there's quite a few changes. I've made a lot of the ones that I mentioned I would in the previous, initial video. The tree's been changed. That will actually affect you. And I'll go over what I've changed with the gear. This is mostly upgrades. And then, because to make it a bit easier, I'll go over a kind of progression for gear. And then I'll go over the kind of aspirational further upgrades and what I'm working on now. And I'll also go over a little bit of how to craft some of the higher level gear pieces, because while crafting is kind of easy in PoE2, it does require a lot of knowledge of things, right? Like putting it all together is pretty easy, and a lot of it is quite deterministic, but it's a little difficult. So first, let's look at the tree. I've got a setup of weapon set points now. I'm not using all of them because I don't feel the need to, but I'll go over what I've done. So all of this is the same. This section is all helpful for both. I've got these evasion nodes are only effective with set 1, which is permafrost bolts. Actually, should probably go for what is actually set to each set. So, Fragrans is set 2, most other stuff is set 1, Plasma Blast is set 2. That's basically it. Technically, Emergency Reload is set 2, but it does not matter in the slightest for that one. So, yes, set 2 is the damage, set 1 is the clear. When you set your weapons, you'll need to change your hotkeys. It's a little bit annoying. So the way it works, instead of loading the rounds to each one, you have a separate fire crossbow option for each, right? Like crossbow shot. You've got crossbow shot weapon 1, set 1, crossbow shot weapon set 2. This is set 1 here, set to permafrost bolts. That's loaded in like this. The reason why permafrost bolts is the only bolt thing on set 1 is so that you don't have to press this button again ever. I will fire and it will automatically load. If I swap to the other one and I fire other stuff in that set, the permafrost bolts stay loaded. You don't ever have to press a button for this. That's the general idea. So yes, that's that. So you have to set that up, right? And that means I had to relearn the hotkeys, and it was a little bit annoying, but now it's quite smooth. The upshot of having the 2 weapon sets, and of course you put your weapon in and then you use the lock to both sets option, and so now both weapon set 1 and weapon set 2 use the same weapon. It's a new option that was added this league. And yeah, the upshot of this is that switching between the two is instant. You don't have to load a bolt. It makes it a lot faster for clearing. It's quite comfy. Now, back to the tree. So for the clear set, we've got all these armor and evasion nodes. The evasion is not that important when bossing because you kind of don't want to get hit anyway. Any of the stuff that isn't going to kill you, this won't matter. Any of the stuff that will kill you, this won't matter. So, we've got the movements and attack speed if you've killed recently here from the for weapon set 1. We've got the Herald damage nodes for weapon set 1, because this doesn't matter at all for single target, but this node is still here because it's efficiency and it gets a little bit weird without it. This is the same for each. We've got the area of attacks mods for weapon set 1. Here we've got these mods for weapon set 2, and that's because I've got this dual. I've got an Against the Darkness with damage is extra cold and some fire res. The fire res is because I changed my gear around and I needed to fix my resistances, and the damage is extra cold is just more damage. So the reason why we've got this one here in this second set is because I don't really have enough points to path anywhere helpful. I would path in this area, but it's just too difficult. I can't really cut enough from this section to do that kind of and be happy about it. But this it's the only thing that's happening is ailment and stun threshold while surrounded, but also the damage is extra cold, which is nice, and a little bit of armor and evasion. For weapon set 2, the single target one, we have all of these nodes for damage with hits against rare and unique enemies. There's also an attack, like these are like attack speed while rare or unique enemies in the presence. And this node, the build up one, is only for set 1. Because some extra slots were nice. This damage and attack damage while moving is for weapon set 2 because I don't find that I need it for set 1. This Bounty Hunter is not here for set 2 because I needed 1 more point to path over here to these damage while affected by heralds and cold damage while affected by herald nodes for the single target. So that's the change to that. The other change is the inclusion of this from nothing. Now, can I? No, great, I can't search. I'm very, very prepared, as you can see. I'm more prepared than I was last time, but oh. In radius of... Nope. What the hell am I doing? Chaos in... Can I spell? It's 1-0. Oh my god. Chaos inoculation. Jesus. So, this is currently 100x, which is very cheap for what you get from it. The problem with From Nothing is that it's got a massive variety of things that can drop, so this price is very volatile. This is a lot less than what I bought it for. It was around 300x when I purchased it because there were only 20 on the market. Anyway, here's why we get that. These two nodes here are incredibly strong. Freeze build-up, damage with hits against frozen enemies. Freeze build-up, hits ignore non-negative elemental resistances of frozen enemies. These are the two important ones. They are so important, in fact, that I would recommend anointing this if you can't get this jewel for whatever reason, because this is by far the best node you can have. This helps for single target and for clear, because it makes your Herald of Ice do a hell of a lot more damage, because it's hitting enemies that are frozen, and this helps you clear a lot. It's also great for the shattering hit against single targets. It's very big damage. This node is only allocated for set 2, because the cold damage against shocked enemies is only active when Plasma Blast is on the enemy. So it's not, and it also really doesn't matter for the other one. And then finally, this is just a little bit of extra damage if you have a spare node. The other thing I've done, I'm level 95 now, so I put these points into the skill speed and move speed cluster here. So those are the changes to that. My Part of the Well is still the same one as it was before. I can't imagine I can get one that's much better than this without spending a hell of a lot of money. So yes, there's that. Now, the next item on the menu is Exploit Weakness support. I have been going back and forth about this non-stop, and I decided to finally, like, every time I came to a conclusion, something new showed up that made me change my mind. And so I ended up doing a bunch of testing and doing the maths for you so you don't have to. The thing that changed things was the existence of Uruk's smelting support on the gas grenade. This is basically a direct upgrade from Armor Demolisher, and it says fully breaking armor with supported skills causes the affected targets to permanently take 2% increased fizz damage, up to 20%. If you are consuming every armor break with exploit weakness, this will stack up to 4, 6, 8%, etc. So I did some maths, some testing, to figure out whether that or just a generic support like Ellie Focus is better. And so here are my numbers. These numbers here are not accurate because the damage per hit is so inconsistent because of concentration and of tons of like roll ranges. There's no way for me to really easily figure out what these numbers are, and my other problem, suffering from success, is that I actually kill pinnacle bosses before I can get an average. So anyway, this is a kind of guesstimate based on hits against the Vessel of Kulamuk's final phase, without the plasma rounds shock applied, because otherwise I one-shot him. So this is the kind of rolling total damage per hit count when you have Ellie Focus on, right? This is very simple. This is the first hit that shatters plus non-shattering each time, which gets up to a total of 4.28 million damage in this case. My actual damage numbers are way higher than this, of course, but this is just an example based to trying to get the ratios right. Now, if you're using Exploit Weakness instead and you're breaking every 2 hits, which is the case against most Pinnacle bosses except Vessel of Kulamuk, who has very high armor for some reason, then this is what the numbers look like. So all this stuff here is just figuring out, like you have to remember that the increased fizz damage taken only applies to the fizz proportion of the hit, which is around 57% of it for the non-shattering hits. So adding each of these up with the non-fizz proportion of the hit increased by whatever percent from the non-shattering, this is what you get. It starts off and it holds a little bit higher, and the difference increases kind of at a steady linear rate until you hit 4.396 million damage. Now, if you're breaking every 3 hits, and this will depend on a lot of things, but if you're breaking every 3 hits, it's less obvious, but it is still an upgrade. So, basically, for single target, using Uruk's Smelting and Exploit Weakness is better. However, that comes with the downside of Exploit Weakness being a dead support while mapping. It literally will never do anything unless you're fighting a boss, because you're not going to be throwing your gas grenades around, there's no point. So, for me, I can do that because I one-shot enemies in maps no matter what, no matter how many tank mods are on it, it doesn't matter. I one-shot all rares. It's fine. So, for me, I can run Exploit Weakness and never have to swap it out. If you're dealing less damage than this, and you do need your damage for maps, you run Ellie Focus instead, and if you really want to squeeze all the damage you can out, you can swap in Exploit Weakness for Pinnacle bosses. If you don't want to do that, you're not really losing that much. Like, the difference isn't massive. It's quite small. But it is ever so slightly better. So yeah, there's the answer on that. Now, here's an extra thing, though. Because you're consuming something, it means that if you're at the point where you have enough damage and you can keep Exploit Weakness on permanently, what you can do is you can switch off Overwhelming Presence to Shard Scavenger, which gives you a buff when you consume Freeze, Shock, Ignite, or Fully Broken Armor, which reloads your crossbow, restores a cooldown use of your grenades, and grants a buff causing crossbow attacks to not consume bolts for a duration. This is a really, really big damage increase, and it's more consistently applied if you have the armor break consumption. Now, I would still, if your damage is lower, keep on Overwhelming Presence, which is the one that reduces the ailment threshold, because you need all of the help you can freezing like tier 3 pinnacle bosses if your damage is lower. I did my first few clears of each one with that, and with a much worse crossbow. It was the one shown in the first video. It was about 660 physical DPS compared to this one's 1000. So that's what I used. You can kind of, test it to your liking as well. It's kind of up to you. But yeah, that's the lowdown on that support. It's a bit complicated. It's kind of not a huge difference, but it is a huge difference if you have enough damage to use it without feeling the loss of that 25% more against mapping targets. Now, let's look at the gear changes. So, you've seen the crossbow. This is a very good crossbow. It would be very difficult for me to get better than this. This is 1004 PDPS currently, which is a lot. And it's also got 2 essence mods, the Onslaught on killing hits, which is good for clearing, and level of attack skills. The way I came about this is I found a crossbow with these prefixes, including the desecrated one. Unfortunately, I would have been nicer if it wasn't desecrated, but oh well. And I essence crafted the suffixes. The way you do this is you use the Omen of Dextral Crystallization, which says that the next perfect essence you use only removes suffixes, and you use your haste one first. This is the perfect essence of haste, this one, because they're quite cheap. They are, last time I checked, like 9 exalts. You use that, then you use the perfect essence of battle, and you hope you don't, again with Omen of Dextral Crystallization, and you hope you don't hit your onslaught. If not, you just keep alternating until you get both of them on, and then you try and you use like a greater exalted orb or a perfect exalted orb if you're feeling really ballsy. But I'd say greater because the amount of bad suffixes you can get is ridiculously high, and you try and just get something decent on the end. If you've got a better setup with these prefixes being non-desecrated, what you would do for the last suffix instead is desecrate, and then just keep re-rolling that with the reroll Omen or with Omen of Light if you get bad ones until you hit something like attack speed, and that would be really, really good. That's the only upgrade to this I could reasonably get. Next, this body armor. I dropped this item myself. There are not many exceptional 3-socket slip strike vests available because they're kind of really rare. Let's, like, if we go a slip strike vest that is not corrupted and has 3 rune sockets, and oh no, they've actually gone up. There's quite a lot of them now. There were basically none of these when I did this, but this was a few days ago that I crafted it, so clearly there's a lot more of these available, which is nice. So yeah, this isn't too hard to craft. This is just more evasion. In fact, you can probably look at this. You can just buy one of these, and it's pretty cheap, honestly. So yeah, you don't even have to worry about crafting these yourself. I dropped this myself, and I crafted it myself, and it's pretty solid. I can upgrade this further, but this is quite nice. Rings. This one I also dropped and crafted myself. I was farming T3 Zesh for a very long time and making money by selling the breach rings after crafting on them a little bit. What you want here is, of course, flat fizz, flat cold, and life, and then chaos res and another res was nice. I got mana per enemy killed with one of my dextral chaos or whatever the hell it's called modifiers, and I got very sad about it, but whatever. It's fine. It's okay for clearing, but we've got percent mana on kill anyway for clearing, so it's kind of not that big of a deal. I did switch to the evasion gloves. It's just fizz, some life, some res. You do need the mana leech node still for single target. You can either get that node modifier. You can either get that on the gloves or on one of your rings. And it's got a Great Wolf's Rune of Claws for a little bit more flat fizz. Again, flat fizz and flat cold are about equally valuable. Flat cold can roll higher, but the only flat damage rune that you can put in here is the fizz one. Next, this craft has caused me great suffering. It is kind of deterministic, but it can get really expensive. I got screwed by this one, I'm not gonna lie. And I got so screwed that I can't afford to put in the movement speed runes that are meant to go in here. So I'm just using some Soul Cores of Kiporlat. There we go, correct pronunciation. Just because I'm so sick of chilled ground on maps. But later, of course, this will be the movement speed runes. They are like 11 divines each. It's very expensive. So yeah, that's later. But I'll go over at the end of the video how to craft this because it's a little bit of an involved process, but it is, again, deterministic. It just costs a lot of money. I think that's all of the gear that I've changed. I'll go over what I'm doing next and my kind of aspirational upgrades in a little bit. Oh wow, I really need to fix that. What is this piece of garbage? I haven't looked at my belt for a while, clearly. So, yeah. I'm gonna kind of give you an idea of how you want to progress through gear as well. Um, Obviously, early on, all you want to do is fill out your resistances and get some life. I do really recommend getting Spirit on an amulet. It's not that expensive. Use the amulet to get your Spirit, to get your attributes. It's really not that expensive right now because there's a huge amount of crafted items on the market. This amulet is the next thing that's changing for me, but yeah. Get an amulet. If you can't find the From Nothing, anoint Heavy Frost, and get the Spirit on that, because that allows you to run, like, you know, some extra nice things like the Vitality 2 and some Clarity and some Precision. And you do need it to fit in the combined, like, this is 30 Spirit, this is 30 Spirit, this is some amount of Spirit. What in God's green? Am I blind? I literally am blind. It's kind of hard to tell how much Spirit this is because I've got the reservation efficiency modifiers. But anyway, yeah, so you want some level of Spirit because it's a really nice thing to have. It gets the build to be a lot more comfy. Just a generic body armor is fine. I used all rares while leveling up. You want your leech node. For your early crossbows, you want to get one ideally with this modifier, level of all attack skills, because it's actually really easy to get. Like, really easy to get. A dextral crystallization plus the essence, to guarantee it on anything, is a total cost of 90 exalts, which for this level of power is incredibly low. You just want to go for highest physical DPS you can afford and this modifier. That's it. If you can unveil or a desecrated mod of like reload speed or attack speed, that's also nice. But that's literally the most important thing, is that level of all attack skills. The amount of damage that this gives you cannot be understated for how little it costs in the grand scheme of things. Eventually with rings, you want to transition into breach rings. These aren't too expensive because there are a billion of them on the market. The beauty of breach rings is that you can use Reaver catalysts to scale attack modifiers, which both of these are. So you can scale both at the same time. Reaver catalysts are a bit expensive though. They're, I don't know. Great question. There you go, 3.5 exalts each. So yeah, that can get expensive. So don't worry about that until a bit later. For the helmet, of course, requiring the 5 fewer enemies one is what you want. But, of course, this is quite expensive, as you can see. 700x-ish, which is kind of rough. However, this build, because it's using shotgunning and it's always trying to be close to enemies, it's actually very reasonable to instead run oh, I don't have my one of it anymore. One with 4 fewer enemies. This drops the price significantly. That's 200x. If it's corrupted, it's even less, 90x. 90x. That's a drastic decrease, and this means it will be active when one enemy is nearby. If you do this, you do want to grab this node here, which is increased surrounded area of effect. It will just make it a bit more comfy. But this will be active in pinnacle bosses. I used this for quite a long time before I got my 5 fewer one. It was absolutely worth it. And it will give you a pretty huge power increase with all of these crazy damage while surrounded and other stuff nodes. So do that. It won't cost you that much. Again, in boots, you just want something with some movement speed, some life, some resistances, whatever will sort you out. There are no real required items for this build. It's actually really easy to gear. You just gear whatever's comfy, and then eventually you start looking for more flat damage on stuff. And once you've done that, you know, it's going to be a lot easier. You're going to get a little bit more damage, a little bit more damage, a little bit more damage, plus levels, a little bit more damage. The only downside with plus levels is, of course, it increases the mana cost quite significantly. The cost is applied on loading the bolt instead of firing it, which is kind of interesting, but as you can see, these are pretty expensive. 212, 155. That's why you really need this leech damage as mana node. But with the amount of damage that Fragmentation rounds deals for me, it fills up my mana entirely in a single hit. So, and then while clearing your mana on kill and the small amount of physical damage that Permafrost bolts does will be enough. And yeah, so you want to also get this Heart of the Well. The most important mod is damages extra cold. Any source of damages extra cold is probably one of the best damage increases you can get. What I did for this is I looked at the list of potential modifiers on PoE2 DB. Hang on, let me actually show you. Where is it? What's it called? Heart of the Well. You go to the item, and then you go to modifiers, and you basically search for here, and you think, okay, which one of these do I want? You go into PoE, and you do a count search for like 2, and you just put in all the mods you want and search like that for a Heart of the Well with those. And you basically get whatever's in your budget, but you want to make it have like maybe a count of 1, and then has damage as extra cold. Like, say, yeah, you want this one guaranteed, and then you want some combination of other ones that could be good for you. For me, I really wanted this evasion, and I really wanted the damage. The reduced potency of slowing debuffs, this is a very low number. This does absolutely nothing. This takes chilled ground from 30% to 28%, I believe, which is not noticeable at all. And yeah, I just saw this note. I thought this was kind of nice. This is like 3% less damage taken, basically, because my manas are always kept up. But that's not a very big deal either. You do really want your From Nothing, because the amount of damage that this gives you is very significant. But until then, just use rare jewels, whatever you can find. Slightly weaker versions of stuff, it's perfectly okay. Again, the gear progression is very easy. None of these charms are required, but this costs nothing. This costs a little bit, but mine's perfect roll. This fixes your Chaos Res for a bit, because, again, it's hard to get Chaos Res. It's a bit expensive. The Soul Cores that give Chaos Res are a little bit expensive as well for, when you're just starting out, but that's okay. The good thing is your progression will be a lot more smooth than mine, because Greater Jeweler's Orbs cost absolutely nothing. Like, seriously absolutely nothing. Less than an Exalt. So you can get your support gems really quick. Actually, speaking of support gems, the priority for them is basically this order, right? You want your Ellie Armament, you want your Cold Attunement, you want your Rigwald's Ferocity, again in Weapon Set 2, that's just 30% more damage, you want your Close Combat. I'd probably do it in this order for importance. And then the last one is either Exploit Weakness or Elemental Focus. And then for this one, you want Ice Bite because it's more damage for everything. You want Ellie Armament. You want Fork. You really want Fork. This is a lot of the clear. You want Cold Attunement, and then the last one, when you get a perfect orb, which again is also still quite cheap, is Freeze, because that helps against pinnacle bosses, and then that helps against maps with like resistance or ailment threshold modifiers on them. The rest of it, the only other thing that's 6-linked is my Herald of Ice. The mod that you don't care about, the gem that you don't care about, is Cold Mastery. I don't even think this is the best one, but I haven't been bothered to make any sort of changes. So you want these. You can look on my character on PoE Ninja. It will be linked in the description, and I will eventually make a Maxroll guide, but they're kind of a pain in the ass. So I haven't done that yet. But yeah, you can look at those. There'll be a priority thing in the guide when I make it. And yeah, so that's all you kind of really need to know to play the build and to gear up. But I'm now going to talk about the kind of aspirational upgrades, and then I'm going to go over how to craft those upgrades and the boots. So, aspirational, my next order of business is an amulet with level of all projectile skills, plus spirit, plus whatever else I need to fill out my res, fill out my life, fill out my attributes. The way I'm going to do this is probably to make my own one with a fractured +3. I'm probably going to buy a bunch of amulets, white amulets in bulk, and then perfect transmute, perfect augment each of them until I hit the +3. Then you regal it, and you use a desecrated modifier, but you don't unveil it. and then you use an Orb of Fracturing. That makes it a 1 in 3 to hit it instead of a 1 in 4, because the Desecrated modifier, unrevealed, counts towards the 4 total modifiers, but it can't be fractured. So that's a little bit of tech to make your life a lot easier for fracturing, makes it a 1 in 3. Once I get my fractured mod, it's probably going to be chaos spamming until I hit spirit. I'm going to then try and get life, which will be a massive pain, unfortunately. And from then on, it's a very, very slow use of omens to fill out the suffixes until I eventually get what I want. It will be very expensive, very slow, very painful, but the end result will be more damage and unfortunately more mana cost. You can also do this with level of gems in gloves, I believe, but I kind of don't want to. I think my glove upgrade is like, maybe instead of evasion I get flat cold as well, but I really don't think this needs to be changed much. The belt can definitely be upgraded. I'll probably just buy one of those. And then it's corrupting gems, it's getting corrupts on gear, it's fixing this ring. Instead of getting accuracy rating on it, I want life. I don't think I need the accuracy, but I'll have to do some maths to figure that one out. And then I was looking for a megalomaniac instead of this against the darkness, but they are way too low supply and I couldn't find any with good nodes, so that's kind of gone to the wayside. If you want to get really fancy with it, you get one of the stupid expensive charms that what's it called, that give you, what is it called? I need to I'm so prepared, oh my goodness. Let's go to PoE2 DB. I literally don't remember what the item's called. It's the one that drops from or can drop, it doesn't drop, but it can drop from Wildwood Spirit possessed enemies. Rite of Passage. They are insanely expensive. I'm talking like 70 plus divines. I'm talking hundreds of divines for the best one. Like it's stupid, but that's for later. And then maybe I'll think about some other changes to the tree. I don't know where I'm going next on here with new levels. Level 95 is pretty damn high in PoE2 though, so it's going to be hard to level up further than this. But yeah. Now, I'm going to quickly go over how I crafted these boots, because it's a little bit slow, it's a little bit painful. Feel free to stop watching the video here. If so, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy the build. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, or you can message me in game. My character is twobuildtimmy. Even though I'm only playing one build. Terrible misnomer. But I am on pretty often in Australian times, so send me a message if you really need some help. I will help you because I find that enjoyable. So, crafting the boots. What you want to do is start with an exceptional base. An exceptional base with sockets specifically. So you look for, this is the second best base because the difference in price between dragon scale boots and what's the name of the best base? Drakeskin boots. The difference between those is 16 evasion rating, and the difference in price was 5 divines. So I went for the lower one, and I actually got one that is double exceptional. It's got exceptional quality as well. So I didn't even know that could happen, and it wasn't priced any lower. And so I think I kind of scored on that, but whatever. So you want to start with an exceptional base, ideally white. You want it to be white, like normal rarity. The way you find one of those is, again, you go not corrupted, you go 2 rune sockets, and you go either dragon scale boots, and you want rarity, you want normal. So that's 100x for these. Pretty reasonable as a starting point, but that's the least of your problems when spending money. It's going to be a hell of a lot worse than this. What is this guy doing in my hideout? Sir? Are you good? What is your... Okay, whatever. Then what you want to do... No, okay. Sick. Then what you want to do is you want to use Perfect Transmute and Perfect Augment until you hit Tier 1 life and a good suffix. The suffix I hit was Chaos Res Tier 1. This shouldn't take you that long, but for me, it took me a billion years. It took me 40-something attempts, which is horribly unlucky. I didn't see Tier 1 life. I didn't see life at all for 40 clicks. And that's very expensive because each time you transmute first, and then after that you have to just use perfect augmentations, because after you annul mods off, the item will remain blue. So you only use perfect orbs of augmentation. And what you do is you use one. If it's got one modifier and that modifier is bad, you annul it. You use it. If you get a good suffix, you use another one. If you get a bad prefix, you annul to try and save it, and you keep going, and you keep using annuls until you hit those two mods. Very painful. Very painful. But it shouldn't be as painful as it was for me. Next, you want to upgrade it to rare using a greater essence that adds resistance. Either greater essence of insulation, greater essence of thawing, or the other one, greater essence of grounding. The reason you want to do one that adds resistance is if you end up keeping this through the crafting process, you're not that sad about it. This is guaranteed. We'll just upgrade it to rare with that modifier. Now what you should have is a pair of boots that are rare with max life, chaos res, or whatever your good modifier is. That's up to you for what you need for your build. And then the essence resistance modifier. Next, you want to use an Omen of Dextral Necromancy. So you get one of these and you activate it, and then you use a preserved rib bone or whatever the hell it's called, the one that adds a desecrated modifier to an item, and you want to put a suffix, desecrated suffix on. Now before you reveal it, you then want to use an Orb of Fracturing. The ideal here is that you hit a suffix, because this will save you in later steps. I got lucky and I hit my important suffix with this. It's a 2 in 3 to hit a suffix. If you hit your max life, you're kind of sad, but whatever, you keep going. Either you'll hit your essence resistance mod or your chosen suffix, and if you do, lovely. Now what happens next is you grab an Omen of Dextral Crystallization, which are 54 exalts right now. This, when it's active, your next perfect or corrupted essence will remove only suffix modifiers. So you grab one of these, you turn it on, and then you grab an Essence of Hysteria, which on boots gives movement speed. So, technically you could get higher movement speed, but exceptional bases with item level 82, which is what's required to hit tier 1 movement speed, are insanely expensive. Like 100 divines sort of thing. So don't even worry about it. It is not worth. And it would make the crafting process no longer deterministic and instead inordinately expensive. So don't worry about that. Now, Essences of Hysteria are quite expensive, but again, it's deterministic. You use your Dextral Crystallization, you stick it on, and it will remove one of your suffixes. The ideal is that it removes the Desecrated mod, and then adds the movement speed. That is the best case scenario. What happened for me is it removed my Essence Resistance mod, which is fine, I guess. The worst case scenario is if you didn't fracture your chosen suffix and it removes your chosen suffix. That is kind of sad, but whatever. It's still okay. Then what you want to do is, if it did remove your desecrated mod, you want to put it back on again using the Dextral Necromancy to add a suffix. And then you want to use, again, an Omen of Dextral Crystallization to make sure it's removing a suffix. and you want to use an essence of horror, which is currently 380x, which is, I don't know what, yeah, 4 divines. This modifier is a prefix. At this point, it can't hit your life to remove, it can't hit your movement speed, they're both prefixes. And so it will have a choice between a desecrated modifier and a suffix that you still have on the item. If you're lucky like me and you have your chosen suffix fractured, this is a guaranteed it'll remove the abyssal mod, the desecrated mod, and it will add increased effect of socketed items. Now what you want to do after you've hit that is you want to add your suffix desecrated mod again, and you want to use the reroll omen, which is the Omen of Abyssal Echoes, I believe, right, which is 41 per attempt, to try and hit a good modifier. You want high resistance, you want one of these hybrid resistances, whatever your build needs. If you don't hit it within the 2 rerolls, like I did in my first try, of course, you then have to use, unfortunately, an Omen of Light to remove it, which is 250x, which is expensive and sad. I had to do that twice because I got shafted. You probably statistically shouldn't get shafted, but whatever. If you're a real baller, you can use an Ancient Rib instead, which with their current prices might be the good idea, which guarantees some level of minimum modifier when you apply that last desecrated mod, but yeah, it's up to you for that one. Then once you do that, you want to probably perfect Exalted Orb, because the only mod you'll have open is a prefix. And so I perfect Exalted Orbed percent evasion rating, which I'm quite happy about. And yeah, there you have your boots. Then what you want to do is you want to cry about how much money you're about to lose, and you want to put in Farrell's Rune of the Chase. 2 of them, which is 21 divines into these slots. Again, I can't afford that because I got really unlucky in this craft and it bankrupted me. So I'm using the Soul Cores of Kipolat. You can also use the ones that give you, I think they're called, it's an Exalt for Farrell's Rune of Grace. This is reduced penalty from using skills while moving. I used this, I didn't find that it made a huge difference, but your mileage may vary. And yeah, there you have your super expensive boots. These are very, very valuable. They're kind of like the big craft this league. As you can see, there's none with evasion. You're looking at, for far, far worse boots than mine, with terrible suffixes, you're looking at like 90 divines. If you get one with fire and chaos, like I have, yeah, 95, 100 divines, that sort of thing. So crafting this will cost a hell of a lot less than buying it, and you actually can't even buy one with evasion right now. They're just, anyone who's made these is using them themselves, or they've made it for like energy shield builds where it's a slightly different process to guarantee the energy shield prefixes. Yeah, it's a little bit different. If you want a visual explanation of this, Captain Lance has a video about how to craft these. He is much more of a baller than I, and he could demonstrate it real time, whereas I cannot because I'm poor now. But you know, yeah, it's pretty. This is a pretty crazy craft, and again, it's mostly deterministic. But yeah, so that's how you make that. I might put out a video on how I make my amulet when I eventually do make my amulet, because I imagine it'll be long, involved, and painful. But I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to go about it yet, so I will update you on that later. I'll also pin a comment in the top of this video when I've made the Maxroll guide and figured out actually how to do that easily. I had a quick look and it's kind of a pain. And I'll link that. But for now, my PoE Ninja character link will be there in the description. Again, thank you for watching. Please feel free to send me any sort of questions or comments or suggestions or whatever. I'm very happy to see them. And yeah, I was going to put some gameplay in this video, but I have terrible Australian internet and it will take like 5 hours to upload as it is, and so I don't want it to be any longer than it has to be. I might put some updated gameplay just like in an unlisted link in the pinned comment later. Um, just because I need you to know it's fast. The build is incredible. It's so overshot my expectations. The clear is insane. The screen clear explosions, especially with the addition of this node, are insane. The damage is fantastic. I one-shot everything in maps. I one-shot map bosses with 3 tank mods. It's really good. And it can only get better. So I'm very happy with this. Let me know if you follow the build, how you're going. And again, if you have any questions, ask me in game or ask me in the comments. And yeah, thank you for watching. I don't have an outro. I guess I'll do Palsteron's one. I still don't have an outro, so yeah.